Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. Welcome to my fourth review video about another very hard to watch episode of that truly deplorable Star Wars series on Disney Plus that's entitled The Acolyte. Premiering on June 25th, 2024, Episode 5 can best be described as an obvious allegory to the teenage life experiences of the show's creator, Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant, Leslye Headland. And you'll see in a little while why that's the case, because the oh-so-obvious theme of Episode 5 is essentially rebellion against societal norms. In fact, that's the recurring theme of the entire series, but The Acolyte is nowhere near as good as movies such as 1955's Rebel Without a Cause, 1985's The Breakfast Club, or 1986's Ferris Bueller's Day Off, all of which were about rebellion against societal norms. But unlike the aforementioned movies, whose rebellious main characters are teenagers, in The Acolyte, its rebellious characters are in their mid-20s. So they're adults who come across as having narcissistic personality disorders, and is that really entertaining? No, because most people probably can't relate to that, nor can most people probably relate to adults talking and acting like violent and rebellious teenagers who are far more interested in themselves and violently imposing their own personal views on others. That's the Acolyte series in a nutshell. And for those of you who watched my previous review video for Episode 4 that I released last week, you may recall what I said at the very end of that video. Quote, "There are still 4 more episodes to go that not even the critics have seen, and I have no doubt whatsoever that they'll be just as bad as Episodes 3 and 4, if not worse." Unquote. Well, guess what, folks? The first of those 4, Episode 5, is way worse. But before proceeding, I'd like to ask everyone to please like this video, please share the video on social media, please subscribe to support this channel, and please press the bell to receive notifications. Thanks! And just so you're warned, spoilers are coming, folks. So unlike Episode 4 that was essentially 28 minutes of soporific filler followed by 2 minutes of action, Episode 5 picks up immediately where Episode 4 left off, but its first 60 to 90 seconds not only have no dialogue, it's nearly impossible to see what's happening due to incredibly poor lighting that borders on near total darkness. And that nearly total black screen is part of the show's reported $180 million production budget. So congratulations to shareholders who are investing in the production of Dead Air. Are you shareholders still happy with your votes earlier this year to re-elect the existing idiots on Disney's board of directors that are continuing to run the company into the ground? Hope you are. But after that first 60 to 90 seconds of near-dead air, the action suddenly becomes visible from the fluorescent rainbow glow of blue, green, yellow, and red lightsabers being swung around nearby. And it soon also becomes mixed with incredibly predictable character behavior before Episode 5 self-destructs with incredibly bad dialogue between Jedi Master Soul, as played by Jung-jae, and the presumed Sith Lord, who anticlimactically turns out to be the character of Kamir, as played by Manny Jacinto. And just FYI, folks, the letter J in Spanish is pronounced like the letter H in English, which is why Manny's last name is pronounced as Jacinto and not Jacinto. But going back to that anticlimactic reveal, yeah, it had zero shock value. And in case you forgot who Kamir is, he's the uninteresting character that May periodically hangs out with and gets assistance from. She also left him hanging upside down from a tree towards the end of Episode 4 before that episode's action finally picked up. And with his smiling helmet, I have personally dubbed him to be Darth Smiley Face. So once the dead air ends at the beginning of Episode 5, Jedi Master Soul and his cadre of mostly unnamed and unimportant Jedi extras are fighting Kamir/Darth Smiley Face, but only the unnamed ones get killed within the first few minutes. Naturally, the only 3 Jedi who aren't killed in the episode's first fluorescent lightsaber rainbow-colored light show are Sol Jecki, as played by Daphne Keane, and Yord Fandar, as played by Charlie Barnett, who thinks that Anakin Skywalker blew up the Death Star.
But if you can't look and see that Anakin blowing up the Death Star possibly killed millions and millions of people.
Yes.
But Yord gets injured, and Osha, as played by Amandla Stenberg, who acts like she's God's gift to humanity, distracts Kamir/Darth Smileyface by using her stun gun on him, which of course does absolutely nothing to him, but it gives Yord a chance to move away and for Sol and Jecki to attack him, while Yord yells at Osha to run away. And as Osha runs away with her trusty flashlight, Smileyface throws his red lightsaber towards her as it spins and cuts through the trees, as shown in the final clip that was shared in the March teaser, and was its only high point, as I talked about in a video that I had released at the time. Sol, of course, blocks the spinning red lightsaber and once again saves Osha and orders Yord to take her back to their ship. Thus, part of the episode then involves showing Yord escorting Osha back to their ship, as she frequently says that they need to go back and help, while Yord continues to justify his actions, and they find Basil the Bloodhound along the way. Of course, the funny thing here is that once again, lightsaber injuries really aren't all that bad in Disney Star Wars until the bad writers decide otherwise. And that was one of the many problems that Dave Filoni's Ahsoka series had early on, when its other star character, Sabine Wren, as played by Natasha Liu Bordizzo, gets stabbed in the chest with a lightsaber and miraculously survives with only an itsy-bitsy scar. Once the fighting appears to have ended, May, who's also played by Amandla Stenberg, and who was hiding in dead Kalnaka's cave hut, decides to walk outside and is immediately attacked by Jecki, who was waiting outside of the cave hut. Thus May, rather than actually turn herself in to the Jedi as she claimed that she was going to do during the first 28 minutes of soporific filler in episode 4, fights Jecki instead, and at one point holds one of her prized Ginsu steak knives against Jecki's throat, as shown in the May 4th trailer. But Jecki easily breaks free from May, showing that she's apparently a much better fighter than Jedi Master Indara, as played by Carrie-Anne Moss, who was easily defeated and killed by May in the show's first episode in its first scene. Then Jecki manages to put handcuffs onto May's wrists and tells her that she's under arrest for killing Indara, Smelling Master Torben, Kelnaka, and the lesbian space witches when she started the fire. But in the meantime, Sol, who then faces Kamir/Darth Smileyface alone, has a brief chat with him, and thanks to his helmet having a built-in voice changer, he sounds a lot more fearsome and menacing than just plain old Kamir. But Sol doesn't know who he is just yet when Smiley says, "Master Sol." Then Sol asks, "Who are you?" And Smileyface says, "You don't remember me." To which Sol replies, "I sensed something familiar," before the two of them resume fighting. But when they stop fighting again, Sol says, "You carry a Jedi weapon, but you are no Jedi." And let's be honest, that's one of the stupidest statements in this entire episode. Why does the audience need to hear Sol say that Smileyface has a lightsaber when we've already seen him use it, and we already know he's not a Jedi? Just horrible writing by Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant Leslye Headland, who probably thinks she's going to be nominated for an Emmy for this garbage show. But if you think that line from Sol was bad, trust me, the dialogue only continues to get a lot worse in this episode. So after the scene switches back from Jecki defeating May and cuffing her, it returns to Sol and Kamir/Darth Smileyface, and Sol says, "You trained May." Now, I do take issue with that statement for one very simple reason. May doesn't have or use a lightsaber. She fights with Ginsu steak knives, while Smileyface fights with a lightsaber and doesn't appear to have his own set of Ginsu steak knives. These are totally different types of weapons requiring totally different fighting skills to be effective. So while I accept that Kamir/Darth Smileyface trained May, he clearly did a piss-poor job since he only lets her use Ginsu steak knives. It's a total disconnect in the writing that only further demonstrates just how bad Leslye Headland's writing actually is. But going back to Sol, he also says to Kamir/Darth Smileyface, "Show your face," to which Smileyface replies, "And let you read my thoughts? No, no, no." 1 no was apparently insufficient for Leslye Headland, but 3 successive no's is just bad writing that I would expect from someone who's only made it through high school level English. And just remember folks, this show cost at least $180 million to produce. Soul then says, "What master hides his face from his pupil?" To which Smiley Face says, "You tell me," before they resume fighting once again. So after a few scene changes that include Darth Smiley Face getting away from Soul, he shows up right when Jecki is putting May under arrest and attacks Jecki. May then uses the opportunity to run away, but after Smiley Face damages Jecki's lightsaber, and as she finds another one, Smiley Face is gone as he chases after May. When Smiley Face catches up to May, he yells at her, "Coward, you were going to betray me." To which May meekly replies, "Forgive me, Master, I was weak." And Smiley Face says, "You've always been weak," before he slices through the handcuffs that Jecki had put onto her. Then as Smiley Face is going to kill May, Soul and Jecki show up just in the nick of time and attack him, but when May runs away again, Smiley Face chases her again with Soul and Jecki chasing him. Then when Osha and Yord finally reach the trees where the Wayne Doodles live, she can sense May needing help, and Osha finally convinces Yord to turn back and get some of the Wayne Doodles to follow using her flashlight. When Soul and Jecki eventually once again start fighting Smiley Face, Jecki manages to knock his helmet off, and that's when his identity as Kamir is revealed for all to see. And the stunned look that Jecki gets on her face suggests that she recognized him as he kills her with his red lightsaber. So Jecki dies, which is unfortunate given that she wasn't the worst character in the show. Soul, of course, yells no as Jecki is killed because, you know, it's not like we haven't seen that in other Star Wars movies, such as when Luke yells no when Darth Vader kills Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars For A New Hope, or when Obi-Wan Kenobi yells no when Darth Maul stabs Qui-Gon Jinn with a lightsaber in Star Wars I: The Phantom Menace. The derivatives in this series are endless. And that brings us to the point where the worst dialogue in Episode 5 is spoken. Kamir grabs onto May to use as a human shield. Then, as was shown briefly in the May 4th trailer, Soul asks, "What are you?" Kamir says, "I have no name, but the Jedi like you might call me Sith." Soul asks, "Why risk discovery?" Kamir says, "Well, I did wear a mask." Soul then asks, "What do you want?" Kamir says, "Freedom." And here is where you'll want to pay very close attention, folks, because after hurting May, Kamir gives a lengthy exposition saying, "The freedom to wield my power the way I like, without having to answer to Jedi like you. I want a pupil, an acolyte, but this one went back on our deal. She exposed me, so now I have to kill every single last one of you. I don't make the rules, the Jedi do. And the Jedi say I can't exist. They see my face. They all die. Ah, look at you two, right back where you started." And I was very careful about writing down exactly what Kamir said word for word, folks, because if you carefully listen to the wording in that exposition, you hopefully clearly heard Leslye Headland's own life story being revealed within it. In a video that I had released back on February 29th, which was Leap Day, I had talked about an interview that Leslye Headland had given to the AV Club in June of 2021, which was 3 years ago. And in that interview, she didn't say a lot about her upbringing, but she did say the following, which is key to understanding the true meaning of Kamir's exposition. You have to feel like this is speaking directly to you, regardless of what you might be going through, at what point in your life you're going through it. That being said, as somebody that is a lesbian, every time I see gay or queer representation in media, I scream with happiness. There is just nothing like seeing that out in the world. I literally was behind 2 mothers with their children at the airport and I was crying. It is so unusual to see it. And as someone that was raised very religiously and very heteronormatively, I mean, I could almost get emotional talking about it now. That last statement in that paragraph from her 2021 interview is the key to understanding her entire series called The Acolyte. Leslye Headland was clearly very unhappy as a teenager because, as she admits herself, she was raised in a very religious and heteronormative home, which means that she views her entire childhood as being under an imposed set of rules created by a religious authority, aka a church. In Kamir's exposition to Soul, as written by Leslye Headland, the statements, quote, "The freedom to wield my power the way I like, without having to answer to Jedi like you," unquote, is nothing more than Headland's personal hatred for how she was raised. And that will become crystal clear if you make two simple word substitutions in that statement. If you replace power with sexuality and Jedi for church, you'll get the following equivalent statement, quote, "The freedom to wield my sexuality the way I like, without having to answer to the church," unquote. Well, ladies and gentlemen watching this video, the true mystery of the Acolyte begins to manifest. Consider what else Headland had Kamir say to Soul in that exposition. Quote, "I don't make the rules, the Jedi do, and the Jedi say I can't exist," unquote. If you substitute the word church for Jedi again, you get the following equivalent statement, quote, "I don't make the rules, the church does, and the church says I can't exist," unquote. Why does this entire series paint the Jedi Order in such a negative and corrupt light? Because for Headland, it clearly represents the church that her parents belong to and which she hates. Why does Headland have exiled lesbian space switches in Episode 3 conceiving their own children using the Force? Because they represent her own sexuality. And the lesbian space witch's chant sounds more like a political protest than an actual spell, saying, quote, "The power of one, the power of two, the power of many," unquote.
The power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
While I'm not a trained psychologist, the intent of Kamir's exposition that Headland wrote, combined with her own interview comments, is as plain as day to me. The Acolyte isn't about advancing the Star Wars franchise, it's about Headland advancing her personal views, sexuality, and hatreds by infusing them into the franchise. Getting back to the episode, Yord shows up, and when he sees Kamir's face, he says, "You." To which Kamir replies, "Surprise," as he then kills Yord. So even though Yord was annoying as hell, with Headland killing him and Jecki off in this episode, it doesn't leave that many named characters left for 3 more full episodes unless there are going to be even more flashbacks ahead. Then without their lightsabers, Soul and Kamir have a fist fight, and as May once again attempts to run away, Osha stuns her and May drops to the ground. But as Soul is about to use his lightsaber to finish off Kamir, Osha calls Soul out, which stops him. Kamir then says, "Osha, this is your master. You trust him even after everything he did to you?" To which Soul says, "His mind is twisted in darkness." Kamir then says, "I've accepted my darkness. What have you done with yours?" Let's do another word substitution here. If you replace darkness for sexuality, you get the following statement, quote, "I've accepted my sexuality. What have you done with yours?" unquote. Yes, this series is littered with sexual innuendo and subtext, as well as Headland's personal hatred for the church that her parents belong to, which we're about to see again in Kamir's next statement. But before that, Soul says, "The Jedi do not attack the unarmed." Then Kamir stands up and says, "Rules, rules, rules. If you never follow them, you never have to break them." There you go, just as I said. Headland's boss of 6 years, Harvey Weinstein, doesn't appear to have been too concerned about rules either. Go figure. Then, after stunning Soul and putting a flashlight onto Kamir's back to attract the Wang Doodles to carry him away, May has a chit-chat with her sister Osha and tries once again to have Osha come with her because she's still obsessed with that. But when Osha refuses, May stuns her and exchanges clothes with her so that she can go back with Soul to Coruscant while Kamir, who escapes the Wang Doodles, finds Osha, but this time he doesn't try to kill her. Soul's only hope appears to be Basil, who also got onto the ship and is still sniffing May out, and that's the end of this awful episode. I'm not going to provide a separate analysis of Episode 5 since I already provided that throughout the video. Instead, I'm just going to close this video by saying that I have no doubts whatsoever that the last 3 episodes are probably going to be progressively even worse than this one. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to everyone who has subscribed to our channel. We appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button, and please feel free to share a comment. If you'd like to help support this channel, please press the red subscribe button, and please press the bell to receive notifications for new content. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.